Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining me yet again for another stargazing and astrophotography adventure. Tonight we're going to be capturing the Orion Nebula, which is one of the most famous objects in the nighttime sky. The Orion Nebula, or as denoted as M42, is one of the brightest deep sky objects in the night sky along with Andromeda. Located just below the belt of Orion, the Orion Nebula shines at magnitude 4.0, and that makes it one of the brightest objects in the nighttime sky that you can see with your naked eye. You can see the Orion Nebula with everything from your cell phone camera, through a pair of binoculars, through a small telescope, and obviously through something like this with a camera attached to it as well. Obviously, the more aperture of the telescope that you get, the better and better the Orion Nebula shows its glory. The core of the Orion Nebula has a 4-star formation called the trapezium inside. This is where these 4 stars are very closely joined together, and this is part of what makes the Orion Nebula's core so bright. What you see with your naked eye and with your cell phone camera is usually the core. That's the number one thing you'll see first because it is so bright. All of the outer structure is a lot fainter than that and usually requires very large apertures or a CCD camera in order to capture that faint nebulosity that swirls out and around in the night sky around it. Even though the Orion Nebula is one of the most popular objects in the night sky, it actually is one of the most difficult to photograph for a lot of people. The reason for this is because the core is so bright and the outer nebulosity is so faint. When you explore the Orion Nebula with a CCD camera like we are with this 8-inch Celestron, the problem becomes the minute you expose the core more than about 15 to 30 seconds or so, depending on your settings of your camera with your gain and your exposure, the core just completely gets blown out. It just becomes a white mass in the center of the nebula. You get all the nice other colors and structure around the sides, but your core is completely devoid of any detail because it's overexposed and blown out. The key to this is you have to expose the core, very short exposures. We're going to use 10-second exposures tonight, but then you'll take a bunch of those photos at 3 seconds apiece, and then you'll take your bunch of your long exposures as well, and you have to create an HDR effect using Photoshop, Affinity, PixInsight, any of the processing softwares that you feel comfortable with. It is quite a different approach. It's a difficult approach for somebody that's just starting out because they really want to get all of that nice detail of the core, because that's where a lot of the structure of Orion is in that central region. There's lots of color in there. There's the trapezium in there. They want to capture that, but it's very hard with a lot of these cameras being as sensitive as they are. Now, I talk about that as that's a bad thing. It's 100% a wonderful thing that these cameras are so sensitive and they pull in all that faint detail for us. But there are certain targets like this where we just have to help it figure out what we need it to do. Tonight, we're going to be using this Celestron 8-inch. It's got the Hyperstar version 4 on it, which drops it to 390 millimeters at f2. So it's going to be super fast imaging. We've got a brand new filter that I've never tried out yet. It's the IDAS NBZ Nebula filter. It's the Nebula Booster model, and this is the ultra high speed variant. So this is made for the fast optics of this f2 system. Now, I am doing this over the course of 2 separate nights of imaging. Last night I was out and I got about an hour and a half of the Orion Nebula using this filter and the camera. But unfortunately, Orion went behind the tree that's in my front yard, this big massive tree that's here. And while it's great because it blocks the street lights down the street, it unfortunately said goodbye to Orion very quickly for me. Now, I did get a little bit of a late start last night, so tonight I'll get a start right after sunset, so I should be able to get close to a full 4 hours. So combining those two, I might get a little bit over 5.5. Maybe if I can push it, depending on where I set up, I might be able to get a total of 6 hours total on Orion. We're currently taking 3-minute exposures for each frame. We're guiding fairly decently for the fork mount. And we're doing, like I said, 3 minutes apiece, and we're taking several hours of these. And you can see just the single shot, the Orion Nebula's detail and color coming through is actually really quite nice. So we're going to continue to let this run for the next several hours, and hopefully we can capture enough data collectively to exceed 5 hours of data total over the course of these 2 nights. As always, if you like my content, please be sure to subscribe, hit the like button. I do have more videos. I've got a new mount to showcase. I've got some new cameras to showcase and some techniques that I want to make some videos on. So there's a lot more content coming. Thank you all for joining me once again. It's been an absolute pleasure to take you along for the ride. As always, have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll see you next time. Clear skies.